Once again, we have the privilege of talking to Rabbi Leib Troper. Pesach is right around the corner, and continuing on that, Pesach is a time of change. I'm not just talking about changing over one's kitchen and the entire household, but really personal change as well. So, Rabbi Leib, the topic today is the challenge of change and the struggle of the rewards. And this is indeed a propitious time to talk about it. So, can we hear from you on this whole concept of the challenge of change and what the struggles are and the rewards it brings?
I don't know who is not trying to change. I don't know who people, when they cease to, make the effort to change. It's an ongoing, long life process to keep on changing. Even changing one's mind about different positions that they had. The Yeshiva Zecher Tzadik Levracha, Maran Rav Hutner, once was sharing his position about. He used to have a certain kesher with a Adam Gadol who was very favorable towards Zionist ideals, and he changed. He just changed, and he used to have a picture of a Zam Meltzer in his sukkah instead of the previous person that I just mentioned. And somebody asked him, one of the Rosh Yeshiva in Chaim Berlin asked him, Rosh Yeshiva, what happened? Why did you? What happened? Like as if it's something wrong that would happen. So he said, what do you want? He said in Yiddish, what do you want? I should die the way I was born. I changed my mind. If one could say that to themselves, one could believe that about themselves, they change their mind, they also change their behavior. And Kal V'chomer, they could change their behavior. William Hazlitt once said, man is the only animal who laughs and weeps, for he's the only animal that knows and is struck by the difference. Things in life that happen, things make him laugh, and things make him cry because he's aware of the difference and he's struck by that difference. He knows what things are and what things ought to be, and that also makes him cry or laugh. Nietzsche, unfortunately, had a very, very strong term to use about people. He calls them men are sick animals. Sorry for him, because he never met a divine person. Man is complex because he's divided. There are conflicts that people have. And he wants to change. A person has a desire, deep down desire in him, and a hope and a prayer to change and find his way out of this maze of life. We have, as humans, we have the appetites of an animal. Uncompromising indulgence. But you're unable to be free to express our guilt feelings about pursuing that in a whole life. He could be an animal. Man could be an animal. But he's trapped. He's handicapped by his moral yearnings that he has. Those moral yearnings are not satisfied just with being the animal. In short, and in brief, the Mesilas Yesharim, the Elf Havdalos from the above mentioned, writes as follows. Perek Aleph, almost near the opening of the Sefer. V'nimtza, talking about human beings, that a person who musam be'emes, a person is put betoich milchama hachazoka, between the unbelievable waging war. He's a real warrior. He called inyan ha'olam bein l'toy, bein l'mutav, good or even better. Hine heim nisyanes la'adam. Everything is a challenge to man. Ha'oini mitzad echad, poverty in one way. V'ha'oisher mitzad acher, and wealth on the other hand. and some even consider wealth a bigger challenge than poverty. Chaim Volozhin writes that in Pirkei Avos. Kedushas Levi writes that also in Chumash. Shalva, the complacency, relaxing, one side, and suffering, Yisurim mitzad acher, from the other side, is suffering, so much of that internally and externally, physically and emotionally, that people suffer. Ad shenim says, till we realize, and we find ourselves that we're found in a war, from the front and from the back.
And Allah Zayden.
The im yiyeh leben chayil, if he'll be the warrior that he should be, v'inatzeyach hamilcham, and he'll win, mikol tzaddim, who yiyeh la'odam hasholim. He'll be the man with shleimus. He'll be the human being with shleimus. She will be the human being with shleimus. In other words, recognition that we are on a battlefield all our life is the first step towards shleimus. We cannot skip that step in life. The complete self is determined by its conflict and ultimately conquest of spiritual distraction we have in life, by all the things that we talked about. Those who struggle in balancing this conflict run counter to the weight of inertia and the common disposition to allow sleeping dogs to lie. And the Chazon Ish points out that the worst thing in life for humans, I don't want to chepper, like I don't want to mutcha, I don't want to bother everything to have to change. It's such a big thing. I just feel comfortable the way it is. That inability to say I want, or inability or lack of will to say I want to go from what I was to what I should be, what I ought to be, and more importantly, what I could be. The great master, the Chazon Ish Zecher Tzaddik V'Kodesh Levrocha, writes unequivocally, at the root of character alteration is Sur Meirah. Other Hasidic leaders and other people believe that it's Aseh Tov, but the Chazon Ish believes that the first step is Sur Meirah, moving yourself from bad, escaping what is wrong, what is bad. As his language, it is the Noyach Leila Odom. It's easier for a person, it's more comfortable and convenient for a man, Lekayim Aseh, to fulfill what's right. Avol min hakoshi, how difficult it really is. Lekayim Sur Meirah, take on the challenge of escaping evil behavior or bad behavior or nasty behavior or inappropriate or not behavior that God does not like. That is min hakoshi. That's where the challenge of man's greatness is. There is a famous psychoanalyst, his name is Alan Willis. Popular, he wrote numerous books. And in his outstanding book, he has a book called How People Change. If you want to read it, you can read it. I think it's kosher material from when I read it. I see it. So on page 17, he records an insight which he calls a most common illusion. He calls it an illusion. And what is that illusion? Patients who need therapy and are in therapy, and strangely even our most experienced therapists may have the same illusion, is that insight produces change. Insight is instrumental to make one change, to help one change, to assist in change. It's often an essential instrument to change and a part of the process, but does not directly achieve it. It does not directly achieve change by having insight into what is going on with yourself. There's a mindset that is born out of a story with the Rambam. The Rambam had a bet with his associates, some of the doctors in the court of the Sultan of Egypt, which Maimonides was the physician of the Sultan of Egypt. And Maimonides had this bet with them. They said that they could change a cat. Maimonides says you cannot change a cat. So they decided, because they were so envious of him, that he had such a wonderful position as the private physician of the Sultan of Egypt, that they'll bet him by his job, meaning that if you lose and you're wrong, then you give up your job, and if you're right, you could keep your job. So the day comes, and the trumpets are blowing, and cats walk into this carrying trays of food on their hind legs and carrying the trays with the two front legs. And they were licking their lips, thinking that they really had a victory. Right here, they're going to take over the Rambam's job. Rambam was no fool. He had a little bag in his pocket. He let out the rat. Cats dropped the trays and ran after the rat. It's very hard to change. One could perhaps train one, but you can't change another person so easily. I want to conclude this particular part of our segment discussion about change. Rabbi Salante Zech Tzadik Levracha, the founding father of the Musa movement, of the contemporary Musa movement, talks about the desperation and frustration when one does not realize immediate change. People want everything immediate, right? We want it right now. We want immediate gratification is not immediate enough. We want it right now. So we start working on the Musa. We learn a day Musa. I don't feel change. We go to a Rosh Hashiva and say, Rabbi, I'm not changing. I'm learning Musa. I'm not changing. So, in a letter in Or Yisrael, in Sefer from Mishos Lanti, he writes, Al yipol leva odom belomdoi musar ve'einenu mispayel. A person's heart should not fall or should not weaken when he's trying to change and does not change. Ve'ein roshem benafshoy. There's no impression even on him from his learning. Yedan emona. He should sincerely know. Ki im loy yigala le'eni habosa haroshem eni haseichel royes. The mind knows the difference between yesterday and today. Though it's not obvious to other people around you, or even to your parents, or to your Rabbeim, the mind first becomes aware. You're different. You're speaking different. You're watching. You're thinking about things. There's minutiae that's going on that in your brain you're thinking about differently than you thought about yesterday. And Barabba Sa'itim, as time passes, you'll change. Things will become different. And you'll become a new person. And the invasion of all these penetrating thoughts, the Musa thoughts, the thoughts that inspire you, will create a rewiring of who you are to who you ought to be. Now, there are secular scientists. William James, as you know, was a psychologist and a writer. And he said that at the age of 30, and I think it's in the book called The Principles of Psychology, page 125, he writes that at the age of 30, the character has set like plaster and will never soften again. That is not a Torah accepted view. To the last breath of one's life, at Meiv Esrim Shana, a person can change. May Kadosh Baruch Hu help us. This is only the first part of hopefully another discussion about how to change, because I definitely haven't covered even a fraction of what I need to cover to discuss this issue of change. But this is the beginning, and I hope in Mitzvah Hashem to have the opportunity to do this again. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Rabbi Leib Troper.